The aliens arrived at 0430. This was their first mistake, not because the United States Navy was ready for an interstellar invasion, not because Earth had detected them early, not because the alien fleet had dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly above the Pacific Ocean, glowing like a chandelier designed by someone with a deep hatred of good decisions. Their first mistake was arriving during watch change aboard the USS Resolute, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier cutting through the dark Pacific. Petty Officer Second Class Ramirez was halfway through explaining to a junior sailor why the ship's coffee machine was mission-essential warfighting infrastructure when every radar screen in the Combat Information Center lit up at once. The junior sailor stared at the display. Petty Officer? Ramirez took a slow sip of coffee. What? I think space is attacking us. Ramirez leaned over the screen. Hundreds of unknown contacts filled the sky above the carrier strike group. He blinked once. Then he picked up the phone. Combat bridge, tell the captain we've got aliens. There was a pause. The bridge replied, Say again? Ramirez watched one massive contact split into 6 smaller contacts. Correction, he said. We've got aliens with a plan. That was worse. The Navy hated plans that were not theirs. Captain Thomas Vance arrived on the bridge in under 90 seconds, wearing the calm expression of a man who had spent 20 years dealing with pilots, admirals, weather reports, broken equipment, and sailors who could somehow lose government property inside a steel ship. The carrier strike group consisted of the USS Resolute, 2 destroyers, 1 cruiser, a submarine somewhere beneath the waves pretending not to exist, and a supply ship carrying fuel, food, spare parts, and 3 pallets of something officially labeled as beef product. Above them, the alien fleet hovered. Huge black spearhead-shaped ships blocked out the stars. Their hulls shimmered with energy shields. Blue plasma flickered beneath their weapons ports. They were terrifying. They were majestic. They were also parked over the flight deck. The chief boatswain's mate stared through the bridge window. Captain Vance glanced at him. What is it, Chief? They're over my deck. Yes, Chief, they're invading. I just had that deck washed. The alien flagship opened communications across every frequency at once. A distorted voice boomed through the carrier. People of Earth, your oceans now belong to the Vrithori Dominion. Surrender your war vessels and prepare for processing. The bridge went silent. The tactical action officer frowned. Processing? Captain Vance folded his arms. That word is doing a lot of work. The chief kept staring at the alien ships. They called them war vessels. They did. Sir, they're boats. Captain Vance looked at him. Chief, this may not be the time. With respect, sir, it is always the time. The aliens had studied humanity extensively. Unfortunately, most of their research came from satellite imagery, declassified naval recruiting videos, internet comment sections, and a documentary about aircraft carriers they mistook for religious propaganda. Their conclusion was simple. Humans were emotional. Humans were divided. Humans placed too much importance on flags, coffee, sports teams, and metal objects that floated. The aliens were only partly correct. Their invasion plan was elegant. Neutralize the carrier, capture the command crew, seize control of the surrounding ocean, use the giant floating airbase as a symbol of human defeat. High Commander Vorthak approved the plan personally. He had conquered fortress moons. He had crushed orbital defense grids. He had once forced an entire planet to surrender by cutting off its weather control satellites and making it rain sideways for 3 years. He was not afraid of one human warship. He should have been. Because it was not one warship, it was a carrier strike group. And worse than that, it was a carrier strike group full of sailors who had not yet had breakfast. The first alien dropship descended toward the flight deck. It was sleek, silent, and coated in adaptive stealth plating. Inside were elite Dominion boarding troops trained for orbital assault, ship seizure, zero-gravity warfare, and ceremonial intimidation. None of them had trained for the U.S. Navy flight deck. The dropship touched down. Its ramp opened. Alien troops stormed out in black armor, weapons raised. Their commander stepped forward. "Submit to the Dominion." A yellow-shirted aircraft director blew a whistle so hard it sounded like a small animal being murdered. "Get that thing off my flight deck." The alien commander froze. This was not the fear response he expected. The sailors did not see an invasion craft. They saw an unauthorized aircraft blocking operations. That made it a flight deck problem, and flight deck problems were handled immediately, loudly, and with professional hostility. Sailors in colored jerseys swarmed the dropship from every direction. One began waving it away with glowing wands. Another started screaming about safety violations. A third climbed onto the side of the alien craft and hit the hull with a wrench. The alien troops raised their weapons. A sailor pointed at them. "Hey, mazel discipline!" The aliens hesitated. That was when the fire hose hit them. The blast knocked 3 invaders backwards into their own ramp. One slid across the deck, spinning like a drunk hockey puck. Another tried to stand and was immediately flattened by a second hose team. The alien commander staggered upright. A sailor in a purple jersey looked at him and shouted, "You leaking anything?" The commander did not understand. The sailor pointed at the dropship. "Fuel genius, are you leaking fuel?" The alien commander raised his rifle. The sailor sighed. "Wrong answer." Then someone hit the alien in the helmet with a wheel chalk. On the bridge, Captain Vance watched the flight deck camera feed. "Are they fighting aliens with deck equipment?" The tactical action officer leaned closer. "Yes, sir." "Are we winning?" A pause. "Yes, sir." Captain Vance nodded once. "Very well." Then he turned to the weapons officer. "Bring Aegis fully online. Notify the strike group. If they fire first, we respond." At that exact moment, the aliens fired first. A blue-white plasma beam lanced down from the lead enemy ship and struck the ocean beside the carrier. A wall of steam rose hundreds of feet into the air. The ship rocked hard. Somewhere below decks, a sailor spilled coffee onto his boots and immediately declared a private blood feud against the entire alien species. Captain Vance's expression hardened. "That counts." The cruiser USS Gettysburg fired first, then the destroyers joined in. Vertical launch cells opened. Missiles tore into the dawn, climbing through smoke and fire toward the alien fleet. The Dominion had expected primitive resistance. They expected chemical propulsion. They expected fear. They did not expect dozens of precision-guided missiles launched by people whose entire job was to delete problems from over the horizon. The first alien escort ship absorbed 3 hits across its forward shield. The shield flared, then collapsed. The 4th missile punched through the hull. The ship exploded. On the USS Resolute, the junior sailor whispered, "Holy crap!" The chief boatswain's mate smiled. "That'll buff out." High Commander Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched one of his escort ships break apart over the Pacific. "That was not in the simulation," he said. His tactical officer looked deeply uncomfortable. "Human projectiles are crude, Commander, but very committed. Destroy the carrier." "We are attempting to." Below them, the carrier started launching aircraft. This confused the aliens. Their sensors showed the ship was under attack. Its flight deck had been boarded, fires were being suppressed, sirens were blaring, alien fighters were descending. And yet somehow, aircraft operations continued. One FA-18 launched from the deck, then another, then another. The aliens watched in disbelief. "They are launching aircraft while being invaded," said the tactical officer. Vorthak narrowed his eyes. "That is irrational." Aboard the lead Super Hornet, Lieutenant Commander Brick Dawson looked up at the alien capital ship filling his canopy. His wingman came over the radio. "Brick, you seeing this?" "Yep." "You ever fight aliens before?" "Nope." "You nervous?" Brick checked his missile lock. "A little." The tone went solid. "Less now." The alien fighters dropped through the clouds like black knives. They were faster than anything humanity had built. Their engines bent gravity. Their weapons fired contained plasma. Their pilots were linked directly to their machines through advanced neural systems. The Navy pilots had training, ego, caffeine, and the deeply concerning confidence of people who willingly land jets on boats at night. The first dogfight lasted 42 seconds. An alien fighter performed a perfect vertical corkscrew attack pattern that had worked across 7 conquered systems. Lieutenant Commander Dawson rolled behind it. "That's cute," he fired. The alien fighter became a brief fireball and a long intelligence report. Across the sky, Navy pilots adapted quickly. The alien craft were fast, but they flew like they had never met anyone prepared to do something stupid on purpose. One alien pilot tried to bait a Super Hornet into a climb. The Hornet followed. The alien accelerated. The Hornet kept coming. The alien accelerated harder. The Hornet still kept coming. The alien pilot panicked. "Why is the human still pursuing?" His flight controller replied, "Because humans lack survival discipline." The Hornet fired. The alien fighter vanished. Brick watched the explosion. "Survival discipline is for submariners." Below the ocean, the USS Montana had been tracking the invasion since the first alien ship entered the atmosphere. The submarine had not announced itself. Submarines did not announce themselves. That was the point. Commander Hayes stood quietly in the control room as sonar operators tracked debris, alien movement, and several very confused whales. "Sir," one operator said, "large alien vessel descending to low altitude. It's deploying objects into the water." Hayes frowned. "What kind of objects?" The operator listened. Then his face changed. "Underwater drones, sir." The control room went still. The executive officer slowly turned. "They came into our ocean?" Commander Hayes smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Flood tubes 1 through 4. The aliens believed the ocean would be easy to control. They had conquered water worlds. They had fought amphibious armies. They had deployed hunter drones into methane seas and acid trenches. The Pacific Ocean was different, not because of the pressure, not because of the darkness, because somewhere in that darkness, an American attack submarine had decided the aliens were trespassing. The first torpedo struck the alien underwater drone carrier beneath its shield line. The second broke its lower hull. The third was unnecessary. Commander Hayes ordered it anyway. The third was unnecessary but emotionally satisfying. On the alien flagship, alarms screamed. "Commander," shouted the officer, "we are under attack from beneath the water." Vorthax stared at him. "From what?" "We do not know. It was invisible." "Then scan harder." "We are scanning harder." Another explosion shook the fleet. A second alien support vessel dropped from the sky trailing smoke. Vorthax looked at the tactical display in disbelief. "Humans have invisible sea predators?" The tactical officer checked the readings. "Yes, Commander." Vorthax looked personally offended. Why would a surface species build invisible sea predators? Back aboard the USS Resolute, an alien boarding party had made it as far as Hangar Bay 3. This was unfortunate. Hangar Bay 3 contained aircraft maintainers. Alien shock troops advanced in disciplined formation, weapons raised, boots echoing against the deck. Then they encountered Aviation Machinist Mate First Class O'Leary. O'Leary was holding a torque wrench. He had grease on his face, a half-eaten breakfast burrito in one hand, and the expression of a man who had just discovered someone had interrupted scheduled maintenance. The alien squad leader pointed his weapon. "Human, submit." O'Leary looked at the aliens, then at the aircraft behind him, then back at the aliens. "You touch my jet?" The alien did not understand the question. That bought him roughly 2 seconds. Then the maintainers attacked. Not like soldiers, not like Marines, like mechanics defending a machine they had personally suffered over. One alien was beaten with a clipboard. Another was buried under a rolling tool cabinet. A third was sprayed in the face with hydraulic fluid and spent the rest of the battle screaming about industrial venom. The squad leader attempted to retreat. A sailor carrying aircraft parts clotheslined him without breaking stride. O'Leary picked up the alien commander's rifle, inspected it, and frowned. No serial number, no maintenance log, no accountability. He shook his head. Savages. The aliens attempted psychological warfare next. They hacked the ship-wide announcement system and broadcast a Dominion war chant. Deep drums echoed through the passageways. Hissing voices promised enslavement. Ancient threats rolled through the carrier. For 7 seconds, it was intimidating. Then engineering overrode the system and replaced it with Danger Zone. The entire ship erupted. Pilots cheered. Maintainers laughed. Someone in the galley started singing along badly. On the alien flagship, the communications officer ripped off his headset. They are responding with ritual music. Vorthak's eyes narrowed. Is it a surrender song? The officer listened again. No, Commander. It appears to celebrate aviation recklessness. Vorthak rubbed his forehead. I hate this planet. By midday, the invasion had fully deteriorated. The alien fleet had lost ships, fighters, drones, boarding teams, and most of its dignity. One alien squad got trapped in a laundry compartment after sailors told them it was the primary human command center. Another group surrendered to the galley crew after discovering that Navy cooks had knives, boiling water, industrial cleaning chemicals, and absolutely no emotional bandwidth for nonsense. A third squad accidentally entered the chief's mess. No one knew exactly what happened after that. The security footage was later classified, not by the Pentagon, by the chiefs. One alien officer was captured and brought before the ship's master-at-arms. The alien tried to declare himself a prisoner of interstellar war. The master-at-arms looked at his forms. You got ID? The alien blinked. I am Subcommander Ralvik of the Dominion 4th Assault Wing. That's not what I asked. I carry the authority of the Dominion. Cool. I still need an ID. I demand to be processed according to your warrior customs. The master-at-arms sighed. Buddy, you are about to experience military administration. I promise you, you'd rather be shot at. High Commander Vorthak watched reports scroll across his display. Explain, he demanded. His tactical officer swallowed. The humans are resisting in a non-standard manner. Define non-standard. They are using aircraft, missiles, torpedoes, tools, cooking equipment, loud music, fire hoses, sarcasm, and administrative procedures. Vorthak stared. Administrative procedures? Yes, Commander. One of our officers has been detained because he does not have proper identification. Vorthak closed his eyes. For the first time in his career, he missed fighting warrior monks. Warrior monks made sense. The final humiliation came from the supply ship. The aliens had ignored it. This was their last mistake. The USNS Harriet Lane was not glamorous. It did not launch jets. It did not carry guided missiles. It looked to the Dominion like a soft logistics vessel. Then it deliberately maneuvered beside a damaged alien frigate and began spraying it with high-pressure firefighting foam, fuel hoses, and what appeared to be frozen chicken launched from an improvised cargo rig. The alien frigate, already damaged and disoriented, tried to climb away. A destroyer finished it with 2 missiles. On the Harriet Lane, civilian mariners cheered. One of them looked at the burning alien wreckage and said, "That's why you don't mess with supply." At 15:30, High Commander Vorthak ordered a retreat. Not a tactical withdrawal, not a repositioning, a retreat. The Dominion fleet turned skyward, battered and smoking. Before leaving, Vorthak opened one final communication channel to the USS Resolute. Captain Vance stood on the bridge as the alien commander appeared on the main display. His arm was scorched. His face looked like a man who had just discovered the universe had a sense of humor, and it hated him personally. "Human commander," he said, "your species is chaotic, undisciplined, and dangerously irrational." Captain Vance nodded. "That's been said before." "This ocean is cursed." The chief boatswain's mate muttered, "Damn right." Vorthak leaned closer. "We will mark this planet as a restricted combat zone." "Good choice," Vance said. The alien commander hesitated. "One more thing." Captain Vance raised an eyebrow. "One of your personnel has painted an image of male anatomy on my dropship." The bridge went silent. Captain Vance slowly turned toward the chief. The chief looked away. "Could have been anyone, sir." The transmission ended. The alien fled into the upper atmosphere. On the flight deck, sailors cheered as a forklift dragged the captured alien dropship into a parking position marked with perfect deck lines. Someone had already painted a name on the side: USS Bad Idea. 2 days later, the Pentagon held the meeting. It was not a normal meeting. Normal meetings did not include burnt alien armor on a conference table. Normal meetings did not include 3 DARPA scientists whispering excitedly over a plasma rifle. Normal meetings did not include a Navy admiral repeatedly watching footage of a sailor knocking an alien officer unconscious with a wheel chalk. Inside a secure briefing room, the most senior officers in the United States military sat around a polished table. Representatives from the Navy, Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, Space Force, DARPA, the intelligence community, and several agencies nobody admitted existed were present. The mood was tense. The coffee was terrible. The PowerPoint was worse. A Navy captain stood at the front of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, at approximately 4:30 Pacific Time, an extraterrestrial invasion force entered Earth's atmosphere and attempted to seize control of Carrier Strike Group 7. The screen changed. Images appeared: alien wreckage, captured dropships, burning fighters, a sailor holding a broken alien weapon and looking confused, a still frame of the USS Montana's torpedo strike. The DARPA table nearly vibrated with excitement. One scientist whispered, "Gravity-bending propulsion." Another whispered, "Shield harmonics." A third simply muttered, "I want it." The briefer continued. The enemy suffered catastrophic losses and withdrew from Earth's atmosphere approximately 11 hours after first contact. The Air Force general leaned back. "So the Navy fought the first interstellar battle." The Marine general grinned. "That explains why the alien survived." The Army general smirked. "We would have had the whole thing wrapped up by lunch." The Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Thomas Harlan, sat at the head of the table. He had not spoken yet. He was staring at the image of an alien plasma beam striking the ocean beside the USS Resolute. The briefer cleared his throat. "Sir, analysis confirms the enemy targeted multiple U.S. naval assets, including the carrier, escorts, submarine forces," and he pointed at the screen. "They fired on my carrier." No one moved. He pointed at another image. "They boarded my flight deck." The Marine general stopped smiling. The admiral's voice rose. "They attacked my destroyers." The DARPA scientists froze. The admiral slammed one hand onto the table. "They touched my boats." The room went completely silent. Then the admiral turned to the DARPA delegation. "What can you use?" The lead DARPA scientist smiled in a way that made everyone in uniform deeply uncomfortable. All of it. The screen changed again. Alien propulsion cores, shield emitters, energy weapons, navigation systems, surviving wreckage spread across the Pacific Recovery Zone, captured dropships secured aboard Navy vessels, fragments of alien hull plating stacked in classified hangars. The scientist stepped forward. "Their ships are advanced, but not magical. We can reverse engineer this. Not overnight, not cleanly, but we can do it." The Space Force general leaned forward. "You're saying we can build from this?" "I'm saying," the scientist replied, "that they were kind enough to leave us a starter kit." The room shifted. The mood changed. This was no longer a meeting about surviving an invasion. This was a meeting about what came next. The intelligence director spoke. "We have partial star charts from captured systems, enemy retreat vectors, communications fragments, enough to identify probable Dominion staging areas." The Army general nodded. "So, we know where they live." The Marine general smiled. "That's convenient." The Air Force general looked at the Navy admiral. "You realize this becomes joint?" Admiral Harlan sat back down slowly. His anger had cooled into something far more dangerous. Purpose. "Yes," he said. "It becomes joint." He looked around the room. "The Navy gets the ships. The Air Force general opened his mouth. Harlan raised one finger. They touched my boats. The room accepted this as a survival decision. The DARPA scientist pulled up a concept image. It showed a human-built warship using alien propulsion technology shaped like a brutal fusion of destroyer, carrier, and orbital gun platform. The label read, Expeditionary Strike Vessel Prototype Concept. The Marine general leaned forward. Can it carry Marines? The scientist nodded. It can carry a lot of Marines. The Marine general smiled. Then I support science. The Army general asked, Can it carry armor? The scientist nodded again. Then I also support science. The Air Force general asked, Can it launch fighters? Yes. Science is acceptable. The Space Force general looked at the star chart. What are we calling the operation? Admiral Harlan stared at the frozen image of the alien fleet fleeing Earth. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then he said, Operation Payback. The room was approved. Unofficially, the sailors had already chosen another name, Operation They Touched the Boats. Within weeks, the Pacific became the largest salvage operation in human history. Navy divers recovered alien wreckage from the ocean floor. Submarines guarded the recovery zones. Destroyers patrolled above them. Carrier aircraft circled overhead. Every recovered component was tagged, sealed, flown to secure facilities, argued over, retagged, and argued over again. DARPA took apart alien reactors. Navy engineers studied shield plating. Space Force analysts decoded navigation systems. The Air Force tried to claim anything that flew. The Navy told them to fill out a form. The Marines asked when they could board something. The Army asked whether alien tanks existed. Nobody answered that question fast enough, which made the Army suspicious. Across the United States, factories changed priority. Shipyards expanded. Research labs went dark. Classified budgets exploded so violently that accountants began speaking in hushed tones. The first human gravity drive test engine tore itself apart in 6 seconds. The second lasted 12. The third accidentally launched a test platform through a hangar roof. The fourth worked. Barely. That was enough. Humanity had learned something important from the Dominion. The aliens were advanced. They were dangerous. They were cruel. And they had made the one mistake that guaranteed escalation. They came to Earth. They attacked the Navy. They touched the boats. 2 years after the invasion, Admiral Harlan returned to the same Pentagon briefing room. This time the screen showed something new, a ship, human-built, alien-inspired, angular, dark, and massive. Its hull carried naval markings. Its launch bays could deploy fighters. Its lower decks could carry Marines. Its spinal weapon was still officially called an experimental directed energy system. Mostly because alien-killing rail plasma cannon made lawyers nervous. The DARPA scientist stood beside the image, looking exhausted and delighted. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "this is the first operational prototype." The room stared. The ship's name appeared on screen. USS Retribution. The Marine general chuckled. "Subtle." Admiral Harlan stood. "What's her status?" The scientist smiled. "Ready for trials. And after trials?" The intelligence director brought up the Dominion star map. Red markers glowed across deep space. "After trials," he said, "we build a fleet, then we can reach them." The room went quiet again. Not afraid. Focused. Admiral Harlan looked at the map. Somewhere out there, High Commander Vorthak and the Dominion believed Earth was contained. They believed the humans would stay on their little blue planet. They believed retreat had ended the war. They were wrong. Admiral Harlan straightened his uniform. "Then we find them." He looked around the room. "The Navy leads the way. DARPA gives us the tools. Everyone else brings the pain." The Marine general grinned. The Army general cracked his knuckles. The Air Force general smiled like he had already named 3 squadrons. The Space Force general simply said, "About time." Admiral Harlan turned back to the image of the USS Retribution. His voice was calm now. That made it worse. "They came here thinking Earth was prey. He paused. They touched my boats. Then he pointed to the Dominion star map. Now we touch theirs.